Hey everybody, Joe Moriarty here, Raven 360. Thanks for listening in on the Training-Led Growth podcast. I had a great conversation with David Grant, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Nasuni, which is a virtual storage technology company in the Boston area. Super smart guy, been led marketing and product marketing, and seen the evolution of that for years. Shared a lot of information and knowledge with me. So I hope you have a good time listening. And please let me know if you have any questions. Joe Moriarty on Twitter, Joe Moriarty at LinkedIn. You can contact me, and look forward to hearing from you. Have a great guest today, a friend who I've known for a few years, but also who's got an incredible background in history in technology and high tech. So David Grant, Chief Marketing Officer at Nasuni. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, Joe.
So you've had a really extensive career all in high tech. Let's talk about that. I want to introduce you and kind of some of your experiences just to get started. So let's take it all the way back, originally from Canada. It looks like you've jumped into some startups. Just looking on your background, Watchfire, where you started to lead marketing, right? So you became a director of product marketing and management. But then Watchfire was acquired by IBM, right?
Yeah, that was awesome. I've been lucky to, I started my career in a kind of couple $100 million company, so called mid-size. Then I went to Watchfire, took the risk in early 2000s. It was a cybersecurity company helping companies lock down their applications. And we got the interest of IBM. They acquired us. I spent the 2 years kind of integrating the company at IBM, so I got to experience a company the size of IBM. But that was a really good exit, fun time. We had a great team there. We brought that from zero upwards to about 40-50 million in annual recurring revenue. So it was a nice run over the 6-7 years, and then we sold it to IBM. So it was awesome, and I've been lucky to get a few of those in the career. So it's been fun.
After the big company IBM experience, then Desktone, another kind of startup, right?
Yeah, that's as small as it gets. I think everybody listening out there knows it's all about your network. I'm a big believer in working with people that you like and that you trust. And same exec team that was at Watchfire kind of went an investor, Highland Capital, you're probably familiar with, great venture firm here in Boston and the West Coast. Brought in pretty much a bunch of us, the CEO, myself, CMO, and then the head of sales to kind of do the go-to-market. They'd figured out this great technology. It was around virtual desktop technology, which now has become, with COVID, the very in vogue technology. But the idea was to virtualize your Windows environment and put it in the cloud. And the team had not had any go-to-market experience, though. They were all kind of engineering, built a great product. So we were brought in as the team. So that was zero revenue up. And then, we caught the eye of VMware. VMware acquired us in 2013. And then that put me on a path to actually go to VMware and stay quite a while because it's a fantastic company, for sure.
Amazing company. Yeah, I did a lot of work with. We've done a lot of work with VMware. In fact, being that we're Raven 360 being a learning and training company, that's where we started to really get involved with customer education and customer training. I think VMware was actually one of the most influential, I think, companies that kind of drove some of our product ideas and product vision. And it was because they had to figure out how to train everyone on a pretty complex, product, a pretty complex, ecosystem, essentially, right? You had to, what is everything from what is virtualization? How does this work? To then using the actual products and tools that VMware had. And VMware was a really big leader in what we called live hands-on training. So spinning up a live environment of VMware, letting someone actually get hands-on experience using product in a more of a sandbox environment, and then kind of taking it down afterwards. So this hands-on digital component to learning, VMware was one of the leaders, one of the early adopters of that. I don't know if you ever had any experience with it there.
Yeah, absolutely. Called HOLs, right? Hands-on labs at VMware. I actually led, part of my team was a technical marketing team that was responsible for those at VMworld, the big event. And yeah, the volume, Joe, you wouldn't believe how many VMs they'd spin up, spin down. People just love getting in there and trying. IT folks love trying stuff. Getting in, getting dirty. I think why they also led in training was, it was a company that was born out of disruption, right? They rocket ship growth. Like I used to tell my family and friends when they'd say, "Who's VMware?" Right? Because the average person doesn't know VMware because they're not a Facebook or a Google or an Apple. They're behind the scenes, right? Like the CEO, Pat, who's fantastic, always says, VMware's behind every screen, every ATM, there's VMware running somewhere, right? In the background. I should tell my friends this, but they disrupted an industry of physical servers. And then they disrupted networking. They disrupted, now they're disrupting storage. They disrupted, in our world, end user computing. And so I think because they were always disrupting the norm, they had to train IT, because IT traditionally was like, well, this is the world I know and love. Like this physical world is the one I like. And they had to always train people about something very radically different. And I think that's the culture that they kind of created, which to your point is they're very good at training for sure, both internal and external. You're absolutely right. What they also saw, by the way, which I think is often missed with customer training, is you create champions and advocates, which has become the kind of cool new thing, right? Is customer advocacy, right? But they did it before it was even cool, because they said, if we train these people, get them certified, get them loving our technology, they'll just tell their friends, they'll tell their colleagues. And they did that like 10, 15 years ago. Now it's, we all have I have a customer marketing person on my team that's responsible for kind of creating that environment. But that's something training I think is often missed, is that if you train your customers right, you do it well, they become your champions and they help you sell, right? And that's the way people want to be sold to these days. They don't want to be sold to by salespeople, marketing people. They want to be sold by peers, and that really helps.
So VMware, all the way through to the vice president of marketing, amazing experience. Then Veeam Software, local, where you're senior vice president, global marketing. And then up to your current position now, which is CMO at Nasuni. So tell us just a bit about Nasuni, and then I want to go back to this question I have for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Veeam, by the way, another great enablement company, really good story, private company, no VC funding, gets to almost $1 billion in sales, and sells for $5 billion last year. Good story there, and also does a very nice job with that customer training and making them champions. And then Nasuni, where I currently am, I decided that I loved VMware. I love the experience. The company's fantastic. It comes from the CEO down. He's a very man of integrity and family values, and just he diversity inclusion was just always something he did even before today's world. It was just a good company, but as I think we've talked about on the lacrosse field, I was actually commuting Boston to San Francisco every other week for 2 years, and with young kids, that takes a toll on you. As glamorous as travel sometimes sounds, it's not great doing that kind of travel. So I decided to do something local, and I want to get back to something a little scrappier. So I joined Nasuni a year ago. Fantastic company, venture-backed here in town by Goldman Sachs, Dell Ventures, Telstra, some local VCs, Flybridge and Sigma as well, and a great leader, Paul Flanagan, who's he was CEO of Vistaprint when they went public. He took Storage Networks public. He's been in the VC world for a long time, so just really nice culture they had there. I love that. And what we're doing is we are trying to convince large enterprises that the idea of building storage infrastructure in data centers is kind of antiquated, and you should be leveraging the power of the cloud. So we've built the first kind of enterprise grade. Think of it like Dropbox for large enterprises, though. Yeah. So not for consumers, end users. So all your file storage for all your files sits in Azure, Google, or Amazon instead of residing on site. And so high growth, added 100 employees just in the past, I think 12, 18 months. We're adding more even during COVID. High growth, fun place to be, right down the Seaport District, for those that know the area, so right down on the water, which is really helping us now, but when we get back to the office, it's a nice place to be.
Yeah, no, great, downtown Boston. I mean, we all want to get back there, right? We all
maybe a hybrid at some point, right?
Yeah. What is your opinion? What do you think? When do you think, because I ask everybody, when do you think we'll start to travel again? When do you think we'll start to see customers again?
Or have our kids go to school or play sports again, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think everybody's answer is probably the same, but we have no idea, right? We just listen to health professionals. We as a company We were able to flip the switch overnight, luckily, because we are, selling cloud computing. We actually have all of our IT infrastructure in the cloud. So we literally made that call. I think it was a Thursday, right? March 23rd. I'll never forget when Governor Baker here in Massachusetts kind of came out. We just said Thursday, let's go. Everyone's going home for the foreseeable future, and seamlessly we have our files in the cloud. We can collaborate. We're already using Slack and Zoom, so it was very easy transition for us. So we've decided, at least more than likely through this year, unless something drastically improves, we'll be 100% remote.
Yeah.
We feel like we haven't missed a beat with all the technology we have, but clearly I think everyone's hungry for a little human interaction.
Yeah.
That's who we are as people, right? So that part's still missing, but I think I think it's going to be a little bit, Joe. I think with the vaccine status, like maybe we get to a hybrid by the end of the year, early next year, but travel, I think travel is going to take a permanent hit, in my own personal opinion. I think physical events are going to wane. I think they're going to get different. I don't think we're going back to 128,000 people at AWS's show in Las Vegas. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to want to be doing that in the foreseeable future, right?
It's definitely forced all of us to rethink how we do everything. And you've had a ton of experience with enablement, right? So enabling your sales force, training your internals.
We did pitching with the stars. So we did a full we all set up our judges' stations over Zoom, and we, because practice makes perfect, right? Doing hands-on, we just talked about that. So for our sales team, we built a new kind of positioning presentation, and we had them trained on it. And then we individually, the CEO, myself, and our head of sales were the panel. I won't tell you which one was Simon and which one was other people, but we had them pitch to us every Friday. We carved off 2 to 3 hours of our morning. And we had a different sales rep. So we went through for months and we graded them, and then we scored them. We gave them feedback, and then we had them come back and do it again. And people really liked it. It was fun, right? Because they got one-to-one connection with the CEO, and some execs they may not always get one-to-one with. They got to have a bit of fun with it. So yeah, it's been interesting to onboard people also in this environment. I've hired a bunch of sales development reps. We've hired a lot of outside reps, and you got to try and make it a little fun.
We stand up part of so we believe in internal enablement. So you got to get your salespeople onboarded, trained, understanding if you use Medic, getting them to get the process, but then also getting the value prop and getting the differentiators and all that stuff that you have to do to onboard somebody is critical. And specifically when you've got a technology company that's probably changing all the time, you're always, agile engineering, you're always going to have you're 2 weeks away from a new feature basically all the time. So, getting that internal enablement going, but then the customer enablement or the customer training experience, getting those folks like you did with VMware, with Veeam, now with Nasuni, as I'm sure you're doing it. So we see this, what we see growing right now rapidly is these academies, like these branded learning academies that are self-serve, on demand, so a customer can go in, get help, and get trained up. Are you guys seeing, well, obviously you must be, but you're doing more of that now as well?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it becomes a little bit of the secondary. Now I'm hearing you and I'm going, you know what, we're a later stage startup, right? So we're a decent size, 300 employees, pretty good revenue, good growth, 50% year on year. And yet here we are, putting so much focus on enabling our sales team, which is important, front of your spear, right? First line of conversation with your potential customers. But we actually, it was late stage that we thought about the customer training side, which I'd be interested in your thoughts, but it seems like that's common, is that maybe not as much with SaaS companies. We started with what we call customer success managers, which a lot of SaaS companies have, as you know. These are people that are not quoted on selling; they're quoted on customer stat levels. And as you know, with SaaS, with software as a service, which is what we are, we compete against big vendors like NetApp, for those that are familiar with NetApp, or Dell EMC, who sell 5-year kind of engagements, right? Big boxes of hardware. They come in, but we don't. We actually live or die by annual contracts, right? We're sad, they can turn us off. You can switch from Verizon to AT&T, and so you need to make sure your customers are happy, or you're not going to have the retention you need, and you're going to have churn, and then your business is totally in trouble. But yet, so we put all this focus on customer sat, customer success, we have a team, but yet training seems to be like, oh yeah, and we also got to train. I don't know why that is. I'm interested in your thought on that. Like why companies haven't figured out. Maybe it's just we're a little. This is an area where we can improve, but we're doing it, but definitely not as aggressive as we should be compared to other areas we're doing.
Well, I think it's a huge opportunity. I think that if you're not enabling, if you're not giving your customers a destination to go, to learn, to interact, to get hands-on live lab experience, all that stuff, I think it's a mistake because, as you said, look, if they're only using 20% or 30% of a product's capability and power, to us, that's a churn risk. Because then, CFO is going to come around at time of renewal and they're going to say, are you guys getting value from this? Are you using it? If someone's not like, yes, we love it, they're going to say, well, let's take a hard look at it. Could we do it ourselves? Could we use another tool? Could we, So,
especially now, right? Especially now, everything's getting scrutinized on budgets. We're seeing it. And if you don't have a champion that's willing to stick their neck out, then the CFO or the procurement person is going to say, well, why do we need yet another storage product? Why do we need yet another, whatever? But yeah, I mean, so what we did was, Joe, we hired a customer kind of on my team, customer marketing community person. And that person did stand up our first community. So we started with an online community, then we started doing what we have a customer leadership program. And then what we started doing was getting those customer leadership. We have about 25 of some of our best customers in this leadership program. And then we use them to actually then start training some of our other customers. So once a month now they get on a Zoom and they talk about the product, the best practices. So we're doing some of that, user groups, but we haven't done the full academy yet. But yeah, definitely getting customers more engaged. And we see the benefits, right? After doing this, I think we had 12 new Gartner peer reviews. For those that don't know, right, Gartner Group, one of the IT analysts that almost every enterprise uses, unfortunately or unfortunately, to vet vendors. And they started this thing called peer reviews, which is a competitor to G2. For those that don't know, it's a rating site, right? It's no different than when you want to buy something as a consumer, you go to Amazon, most of us look through reviews, right, before we decide to buy. Well, this is for large enterprises that want to look at IT reviews. And we were able to, we get 12 positive reviews just tracking those kind of customer leadership, training events, right? So it can pay off, to your point. Like there is an ROI here. The problem is it's a software ROI that takes a bit of time. And that's sometimes hard to convince people to fund, right? Whereas the sales enablement, you add quota, you add revenue, it's direct right from the day that you're enabling these people. So it's a little bit harder of a hump to get over, I think, for people, right?
Yeah. We focus on the revenue impact you can get through training. Again, we call this the training-led growth podcast because we know that there's some amazing statistics. And there's two ways you do training, right? You can give it away as part of your licensing, or you can, or just kind of a proliferation strategy, which is, create an academy experience, but just let people go consume, or you can charge for it. So, like VMware. VMware is a leader in
actually a profit maker. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's benefits to both. I think that if you can create revenue generating training, there's a statistic, and this is from EMC. These are from Dell EMC guys. They basically said if you can get a customer to spend $1 in training, they go on to spend $12 in additional product. So they used a data scientist and they looked at all of the customers that had spent training and then what happened to those contracts when they came up for renewal or they came out with a new upsell opportunity. It was a 1 to 12 ratio. So pretty incredible. And then
it is awesome.
The other strategy is if it's a newer technology that's emerging, there's a proliferation, idea, which is just get out as much as you possibly can all the time. Like we're seeing, like psychologically, that an academy really is like, for whatever reason, people see it. I think they don't think it's marketing. They think like, oh, this is actual like detailed nitty gritty stuff. That gets them in there, and then they actually learn from an academy enough to then talk to a salesperson or buy. So this is like recent stuff. In the last like 6 months, we're starting to evaluate that, and it's really interesting. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I believe it. It's no different than, whether you call it HubSpot or whoever, with inbound versus outbound, right? And creating content. It's no different, really. That the concept, right? I think everybody knows what the concept is, though, that the no sell sell. You educate people via content that may not even be associated to your brand at all. And eventually, it comes around full circle, right? Don't gate your content, make it free and open, and people will just come to love your destination because they trust you now because your content's really good. I could see that being the same with training for sure. And what we definitely see is, in a new market, as I said earlier about VMware, in a new market like us, for example, right, we're trying to convince somebody that's managed their NetApp box or their Dell EMC box for 20 years, right? We're trying to convince them that, listen, that's not the right move forward approach. Now, this whole remote work has really helped us. It's been a tailwind for sure, because no one wants to actually walk into a data center and have to rack gear anymore, right? But so if you're asking somebody to do something fundamentally different than what they're comfortable doing, trying to sell to somebody's hard, right? Like you in that environment, you want to make sure you're educating them. To your point, like, this is why, this is better for your career, this is better for your company, and let me help you kind of get over the hump of the fear factor of, I'm not comfortable making that kind of move, especially in this environment. So in this environment, we're definitely seeing a lot less, which is unfortunate for a company like us. We have a tailwind of remote work has pushed people to look to cloud computing. We have a headwind though of conservatism, right? Like, holy crap, do I really want to do something different right now? Like, am I going to stick my neck on the line? Am I going to tell my CFO I need to move my data center out of the physical location to the cloud? And the good news is a lot of those things are happening top down, but you got to do it bottoms up too. And the only way to do that is to educate them on why they should be doing this. And that's not a sales pitch, right? That's connecting with somebody about their career and their future, and that's a very different type of sell. So I like the idea of training-led growth. It's almost like product-led growth, I'm assuming is where you got the idea from, but similar idea, right, to product. Try the product.
Yeah, we definitely stole that.
All right.
But your concept, it's exactly what you just said. And I am interested because there's also an interesting debate, as you said, between gated and not gated content. And, I think that more and more is going not gated, right? So just letting people engage with your stuff, watch videos, read white paper, do whatever. We find there's a balance that and one of the things that like everyone always asks, like, well, how do I create like content if I'm going to have an academy, or how do I? And we always just say, look, you have subject matter experts in your company already. You've got product and marketing and product marketing and engineering and all of these folks, and create authentic, real content around your products. That's what buyers ultimately want to see. But we also think you shouldn't give everything away, because some of that's really valuable. One, it's your intellectual property, and it's how your products work, and like that's competitive advantage. But there's a bunch of stuff that you can around, like, well, why would I go to a more virtual storage as opposed to the old box methodology, right? And like, that's what people want to see. So we find you give away enough so it's interesting and people are engaged and want to go to it, but then you do have a gate at some point to get to like the real deep, dark, product knowledge stuff. Right. But there's benefits to that too, because then if you do have it gated, then you have analytics and you know what people are looking at. So, but it was I think it's an interesting debate about how much you should give away first. Yeah,
there is a balance there. On the training side, I see where you're going. I'm a believer on the content side that most of it you give away, right? Mm-hmm. For at least the content, not product. You're absolutely right. At some point, there's competitive disadvantage of giving that kind of stuff publicly available, right? Like we're doing some we just got, we have say 30 patents, right? Do we really want the legacy vendors that are out there trying to reinvent themselves to be able to? So there is some risk to obviously going too deep on free content, especially when it comes to product level, detailed level. There's a fine balance there for sure. I do like The idea though of and I'll take that if you don't mind me, just like you copied product-led growth, I'll copy your idea. Like we are going through a new website revamp, and I think we have a community portal kind of linkage, but I'm not sure we've really punched up the training side. But I like what you said about, I think a lot of times people go, holy, there's no way I can create 30 hours of content. I'm already working 10 hours, 12 hours a day. So let me give you an example of to what you just said. We're doing our first online summit, our first big event, right? Nasuni, we're calling it Cloudbound 2020. It's in October. I think, not original. Everybody's doing this now, but my team was like, we have launches. We can't come up with 2 days of content. I'm like, we have the content.
Yeah.
Like, look around. Like, it's like you are the content. Look at us doing content now. Like, just get in front of a video and talk about just cloud storage and what the benefits are and why it's unique. Like, not a sales pitch. And I said, we can pull that with what we already have. And I think what you're saying is similar on training, that probably most organizations undervalue the IP they already either have created through PowerPoints or webinars or podcasts, and also just what's up here, right? Like, we live and breathe stuff every day, right? So,
and I'm telling you, I think that it's just because of the way we're all consuming our recreational content. But YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, even now like Netflix, I think that people in general just want authentic and real. They want to see like who is the expert and the subject matter expert in this stuff, and just talk to me about it, show me how to do it, show me how it works. And I think that works best. I mean, people in the past used to get very caught up in production quality, which is, you want to have some production quality, but it doesn't have to be like perfect production quality. It has to be like your expert. Who's your expert? And like get people just talking. And like you said, it's so easy now. I mean, you can do this. You can do a Zoom, and then you could actually share your screen and record it and talk through stuff you're doing, and you got great content.
Yeah, exactly. I love the authentic side, by the way. I've always been a believer in that. I think it is more important now than ever. I sent a note to my team like 3 weeks ago, my whole team going, listen, if I see a word like unprecedented, some fancy term that you would never use over a coffee or a beer, then you're in trouble. Like, just speak to people like you'd speak to them on the side of a lacrosse field. Like, nobody wants a high quality. I don't think so. I think what do you like? Why is Joe Rogan worth the money he's worth? It's because he's sitting there talking, right? It's why all the podcasts that are top of the ranks are that way. So I'm a big believer in that. I do think that's where software companies get caught up in their own jargon too much.
Oh yeah, it drives me nuts too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's a great quote. What is it? Somebody, I think it was Einstein who said it, but he was basically like, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
You know?
Simple is hard. That's what I always tell people. Like, simple is really hard.
Yeah.
Coming up with a data sheet that's 6 pages long is actually really easy. Like, that's easy. Simplifying that into a paragraph that, somebody would understand, especially, I always use the analogy that your sales team, I won't use a sports analogy because everyone does. So I like to use supply chain, right? You can come up with this great, I used to get in a room in Palo Alto at VMware, smartest people in the world, right? These Stanford grads and IIT, and we come up with this great pricing strategy and positioning. I'm like, okay, now I got to get that out to 3,000 sellers that also have to deal with procurement, licensing, like how to properly know their buyer. Like, that's just one small piece of their day. So they're what I used to call a supply chain choke point, right? Like, if you can come up with all this great stuff here, but if it doesn't actually fit through the supply chain at this point, you're in trouble. And that's where I think a lot of software companies fail, is getting it to the point of simple enough for the average salesperson, which, again, I'm not degrading their intellect or anything. It's just they have a lot on their plate.
Yeah.
They're dealing with finance people, procurement, legal, their own buyer, their own internal teams. Like, they're juggling a lot of plates, and value proposition is just one of those plates. And if you try, I think we overcomplicate it. Marketers especially, we're the worst. I think, we all went and did our MBAs and think that everyone talks that way. It's just not true. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your thoughts on that. I mean, keeping it simple is hard. Like you said, I mean, that's a great one. Well, David, listen, thank you so much. I think that I think we got some great information. I really enjoyed the conversation with you, and I'm sure people will want to hear more from you. So maybe down the road we'll record a little bit more, and we can go a little more deeper on some of these topics. So people can find you out on LinkedIn, right? David Grant, Chief Marketing Officer at Nasuni. So if anybody has questions, I'm sure they can find you there, right?
Love networking, love sharing ideas. So LinkedIn or Twitter, dgrant4 is my handle on Twitter. Love to engage in conversation at any time about best practices around sales, marketing, go to market. But thanks a lot for having me. This has been fun. Good luck with everything you're doing over there.
Thank you, David. We'll talk to you soon.